Today we're talking about Donald Trump will in fact be standing trial for a possible criminal conviction. A cold case from 1968 in where a milkman was mysteriously unalived has been solved. And in some unfortunate but unsurprising news, there's a surging of retirees being forced back into the workplace. All of that in this Monday's episode of... Internet! Today is the first vacation I have ever taken. Well, actually, if you consider making this video work, then I guess I'm not quite on vacation. Well, that's disheartening. Alice, set us up while I go cry in the corner for a little bit here. I'll be with you guys in just a second.
Former President Donald Trump will stand trial in Manhattan on criminal charges of falsifying business records, which coincide with his 2024 Republican presidential campaign. The trial, expected to last 6 to 8 weeks, involves allegations of orchestrating hush money payments in 2016. Trump, maintaining his innocence, labels the trial a politically motivated witch hunt.
That's right, ladies and gents. In an unprecedented legal and political spectacle, former President Donald Trump will, or has, depending on when you're watching this video, appeared in a Manhattan courtroom Monday, or today, to stand trial on charges falsifying business records, even as he campaigns for the 2024 Republican nomination. The trial kickstarts a whirlwind stretch where Trump, the frontrunner for the GOP nomination, will spend 4 days a week as a criminal defendant instead of on the campaign trail. While the stakes are lower in his other criminal cases, a conviction would be a blow to Trump's comeback bid and could shake up the Republican primary race. Could. Probably not, but could. The circus-like atmosphere will see the former president escorted in and out of the 15th floor courtroom by Secret Service agents as he faces charges from the Manhattan District Attorney that he orchestrated hush money payments to a corn star back in 2016 to cover up the alleged affair. Prosecutors are expected to lay out a wider catch-and-kill scheme, using testimony from key figures like former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen to argue Trump falsified records to illegally promote his campaign and cover up the affair. Obviously, Trump is denying the allegations, and his team has tried to frame the case as a politically motivated witch hunt. With delays largely denied, the trial is likely to stretch 6 to 8 weeks heading into the heart of the primary season. The unprecedented trial promises a split-screen dynamic, with Trump squaring off against his prosecutors by day, then firing his supporters with rally cries of being persecuted by night. Sort of a win-win if he's not found guilty, to be honest. Trump's legal woes have only emboldened his base so far, But a conviction could test that resilience and reshape the Republican race as the former president faces potential jail time. Again, I don't think it will, but it could. Both siding things here, people. The trial marks just the start of Trump's legal crucible, with more serious cases looming over his retention of classified documents and efforts to overturn the 2020 election. But it will be the first test in the 2024 campaign of Republican voters' tolerance for indicted, and potentially convicted, nominee.
Over 50 years after the murder of Hiram Ross Graham, a decorated World War II veteran and milkman, Florida authorities have solved the case. The Indian River County Sheriff's Office identified the perpetrator as Thomas J. Williams, now deceased. Revelations came from Williams' ex-wife and a friend, who shared his confessions posthumously, fearing retaliation during his lifetime.
Okay, so more than 5 decades after a decorated World War II veteran was gunned down while making his milk delivery rounds, authorities in Florida say they finally solved the baffling 1968 murder case. The Indiana River County Sheriff's Office announced that the killing of 49-year-old milkman Hiram Ross Graham was committed by Thomas J. Williams, who died back in 2016. The big break came when Williams' ex-wife and a friend of his sister's recently came forward with confessions he had made to them about the slaying. Graham, a Purple Heart recipient who became a beloved milkman after World War II, disappeared on April 12, 1968 after failing to return home from his routes in Vero Beach. His body and an abandoned milk truck were discovered days later in a remote wooded area where he had been shot multiple times execution style. For over a century, the ruthless killing represented one of Indiana River County's coldest cases, but investigators never gave up, pursuing whatever leads they could find. In 2006, William bizarrely wrote a letter to the local newspaper denying involvement after rumors surfaced about his possible connections. A guilty conscience makes you do some crazy fucking things, doesn't it? But it was a deathbed admission that ultimately led to the case being put to rest. Authorities are still seeking any information about a second unidentified man seen with Graham shortly before he was abducted from his truck and unalived. But it's yet to be seen if that'll pan out to anything further. I guess a win is a win, and who doesn't like a good mystery getting solved?
Across the United States, surging living costs are driving retirees back into the workforce. This trend is notable among those over 75, a group that has significantly grown since 1964 and is expected to double in the next decade.
All right. So, adding to the royally fucked jar, here in the US, a growing number of retirees are finding themselves compelled to re-enter the workforce after surging living costs are straining their financial resources during what was supposed to be their golden years. Take Hope Murray, for example. At 80 years old, she anticipated her working days were behind her after a 50-year career that ranged from game show producer to Hollywood party planner to casino executive. However, skyrocketing expenses like gas hovering around $5 per gallon, mounting medication costs, and an increasing grocery bill have forced Murray to take a job handing out samples at her local Costco. The income from her $18 an hour paycheck is now a necessity for making ends meet, derailing her retirement plans focused on activities like golf, game night, pickleball in her San Diego community, which, after 50 years of work, those are both deserved and earned. Murray is part of the fastest growing demographic in the American workforce, those over 75 years old. Like, how bad are we gonna let things get before we do something about this? This cohort has more than quadrupled in size since 1964, according to data from the Pew Research Center. And experts anticipate that this group of older workers will double again within the next decade as financial pressures intensify. While some factors like longer life expectancies, more desk jobs suitable to later careers, and greater remote work flexibility make it feasible for seniors to keep working, financial desperation being the driver for said work is beyond outrageous and something every younger person should absolutely be ready to push back on. So we're talking, if you're 70 or under, you need to get ready to fight back against this. Cause what the fuck? An economist at the Economic Policy Institute described it as a tale of two retirements.
Tale as old as time.
Some older Americans chose to stay employed in good jobs, but many struggle mightily to find professional footholds purely out of necessity. And all this while the nation's safety nets are offering increasingly unstable footing. Problem 1, the Social Security fund is projected to deplete by the mid-2030s. Problem 2, over a quarter of those adults are currently relying on those payments for roughly 90% of their income. At least surveys from the Social Security Administration show. So they might know what they're talking about. Maybe. We might need a third party, but 90% is wild. Yet only partial benefits would be paid out thereafter without legislative reform, which has eluded Congress for decades. Some would argue that Congress has even had a combative stance against those programs. In the private sector, retirement plans have largely shifted away from traditional pensions that incentivize workforce exits around the age of 65. While about half the private sector workers had these benefit plans in the mid-1980s, just 15% had access in as recent as 2022. The predominant option now is a 401k account, which is available to roughly 68% of the private industry workers, but utilized by only about half of them. While US unemployment lingers near historic lows around 3.8% as of recording, the current hiring boom frequently overlooks older workers. They tend not to switch jobs as often and are more likely to be college educated, making them outliers in a market that strongly favors job changers, younger employees, and those without degrees. What jobs older Americans do secure often come with highly reduced salaries and fewer benefits. Proving age discrimination was the culprit behind being passed over for roles is also extremely difficult despite federal laws prohibiting the practice. Around 2/3 of workers over 50 believe that older employees face discrimination, with nearly 90% calling it commonplace. Research confirms older applicants receive fewer interview callbacks than younger ones for the same roles, likely due to the assumptions about productivity declining with age and their higher anticipated healthcare costs, assumptions that data shows are unfounded. As more seniors delay retirement by necessity rather than preference, the World Economic Forum is emphasizing that companies need to adapt. Investing in employee retraining, crafting a new hybrid model to ease transitions out of the workforce, and supporting older workers' unique needs will become vital. Maintaining an aging workforce is going to require a lot more than public awareness. And on that piece of "we're all just tools meant to be worn out" news, I'm going to call it. If you like what you saw, do me a solid and hit that like button. Let YouTube know to spread the word. And, well, I'll catch you later. Bye.